Hey JD, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Okay, as you know, we're going to talk about district elections, a fairly new topic, but then one that came on the Vallejo scene a little suddenly on us here.
Yeah, all of a sudden.
Yeah. A little background about yourself. How long have you lived in Vallejo?
The way I answer that question is I was drugged kicking and screaming when I was 1 year old by my parents. That was during World War II. So I've been here 74 years.
Okay. I know you've had businesses in town?
Yeah,
okay.
my business has been in town. I left Bank of America in 1974, got my CPA certificate, and I've been practicing here since 1976.
Mm-hmm. Have you always voted in Vallejo elections? Been
yeah, I've voted since 1964. That was the first year.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be 21 then. That included 2 years of active duty. I did an absentee ballot, so
okay.
I've always voted.
So while you served, you even voted?
Yeah.
Okay. In all of those 74 years, in looking at elections, learning about elections, and then obviously participating in them from the age of 21 and on, in your sense, in Vallejo, have they been a fair process?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's relatively easy to vote. It's not easy to run for office. I've been treasurer for a number of candidates over the years. I can tell you that's a challenging process. It doesn't matter whether it's district or citywide elections.
Have you, in all those years, been working in the financial side of it, have you seen any inherent unfairness in that process? You know, would you change it in any way? Would you have changed it in any way?
No, I wouldn't change it in any way, other than to make it easier for a candidate to be able to comply. They can get the instructions from the Secretary of State for Political Practices Committee, and any candidate should do that because it causes them problems down the road. The last thing that any candidate wants is for the Secretary of State to say you violated Fair Political Practices Commission rules, and so that doesn't look good. I mean, when we elect people, we expect them to follow the rules. Yeah, just like all of us.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Have you seen any impediments to that in learning about that? You're saying people should self-educate themselves, or at least to be reasonably educated on FPPC rules. Have you seen any kind of institutional impediments to that, where people didn't have perhaps access, or
I don't. No, I haven't. In fact, on a number of occasions, I've met with candidates in order to be able to answer their questions. And in fact, this Friday, I'm going to be meeting with a friend of mine who's going to be running again for city council in the next election, and that he wants me to meet with his treasurer so that I can make sure the treasurer is comfortable with what she's doing, and that she has access to whatever resources that she should have access to.
Okay. Let's move on for a second. What do you understand at this point about this pending change, or this effort to change Vallejo from an at-large full city election process to creating districts, and whereby each district would have its own representative? That district would vote and elect that individual.
Well, what I understand right now is the only reason it's being considered is because we're being forced to do that, or under threat that the city would be sued, and that apparently the city is concerned that it would have to invest several $1 million in defending themselves in the suit, and that the council apparently feels that they would lose. And based on what I understand about it, I don't think that's true. I mean, we've got a history of always having people that want to get involved in the electoral process. Their candidates tend to succeed. You look past, right now we have the Filipino community very well gets behind their candidates. We right now have 4 sitting members on the council that have Filipino heritage. In the past, we've had African Americans on the council. In fact, our mayor before the previous one was African American. The highest vote getter in the last election was African American. Probably the only significant community that I'm aware of right now that hasn't had anybody on council that I can remember is the Hispanic community. But I think that were they to get behind a candidate like the Filipino community and the African American community, and then historically the white community. I mean, that's usually where we get the most pushback. Is that you go to most governments, city, county, state governments, and you find out that the whites outnumber all the others significantly, even though they become a minority. That's not the case in Vallejo. We only have 2 candidates right now. 3 out of 7 that are part of the white community. And so the only part of the community that's not adequately represented, I think, is the Hispanic community. But I think that that's because they haven't gotten themselves involved. But were they to get involved, the community is a large enough portion of the community, the population, that they should be able to elect 1, 2, who knows how many candidates. But again, they have to get involved. I don't feel that this community has an issue there. I think that this districting is a solution looking for a problem. And I don't believe the problem exists in this community.
How do you think it would affect elections if were it to pass, or if it were the council to approve it?
Well, the worst part here is it's going to disenfranchise half of the voters in the city, because they'll only be able to vote when the candidate for their district comes up. So that means every 4 years, half the voting population in the city of Vallejo will be unable to vote for a council member. The other thing is, if there happens to be an issue with a council member, that they can't vote to recall that council member. So they pretty much have been disenfranchised from half the council. I think that's something we need to be aware of.
You talked about the financial risks in fighting it. You mentioned Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. They had spent literally millions of dollars in fighting it.
Right.
How would you see the financial risk to the city of Vallejo?
Well, the risk, anything that they invest, in my opinion, is to protect your vote. Because, as I mentioned before, the districts will disenfranchise me. Half the elections, I will be unable to vote. And I also will be unable to vote for 5 out of the 6 candidates at any point in time. I can only vote for the one that is running for office in my particular district. And as I pointed out at a recent council meeting, that one of the candidates that I'm going to be meeting with this Friday, that he told me that he just moved out to the Hidden Brook area, and he's African American. Well, the only way I'll be able to vote for him, and I supported him in his last election, I voted for him the last election, the only way I'll be able to vote for him is if somehow, magically, Hidden Brook is tied to Glen Cove in the southern part of the city of Vallejo. Now that's gerrymandering in my opinion. And so I will be unable to vote for somebody that I want to vote for. So I think that everybody should be asking that question. Do they really want to give up the right to vote for 5 out of 6 candidates in every single election? Because they won't be able to do it.
Is it worth the financial risk to fight it?
You have to ask the question, is your vote worth fighting for? And if it is, I mean, we're paying for the cost of fighting it. And that, as I said, I think they're a solution looking for a problem that does not exist in this community, that I think that the city council should invest. And in fact, I would support them spending the money to appeal it to the Supreme Court, just like Santa Monica is going to be doing in their case. And I think we have based on what I think I know about Santa Monica, I think it's a lot wider than the city of Vallejo is. I think that if they can feel that they can win by appealing it, Vallejo should win that case handily.
If it were to occur, if the council decided otherwise, and they decided they wanted to do districting, as a lifelong resident, near lifelong resident of Vallejo, certainly 74 out of your 75 years of, how would you see, in a common sense way, Vallejo being divided?
Well, I think that's the worst part about districting is right now we can come together as a community to support candidates. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be forced to dissect this community into 6 pieces. I mean, and the most you can have in any one of those pieces is 20,000 people. And who knows how many voters will be in that 20,000, because there's not all 20,000 people. I mean, some of them are not old enough to vote. So I think it'd be the worst thing that's possible. It's going to decimate this community. We do not need to be divided. This community has gotten along quite well by coming together and supporting.
So you're not seeing in your mind any way that it could reasonably be dissected?
No way.
I think we've gotten your, certainly, JD, your views on the diversity of the city. Moving forward, do you see, let's say we didn't change, do you see that Vallejo's elected representatives on the city council can remain diverse? I mean, certainly we have a diverse city council as of this date. You know, you pointed out we have 4 Filipinos on there. We've had in the past, you know, blacks, and I know the Hispanic community wants to engage themselves a lot more actively. Do you see moving forward that the diversity in our elected folks would continue? I mean, not asking you what that diversity ought to be or that division ought to be, but that we would continue to have diversity. Well,
historically, I think what it's done is reflected the desire of the people who want to get involved. So that we were unable to elect any African Americans the election before this, even though there were 2 on the ballot. This time, the highest vote getter was African American. It's a matter of, in any one particular election, it's up to the community to come and support the candidates they want. And the council will reflect who actually decided to step up and vote. And so I think the bottom line here is that the way it is with the general elections right now, we have the opportunity to continue to reflect that diversity. With districting, there's no way that you would know what the ethnic makeup is of that particular district is going to be at any one point in time, and would there be a candidate of any one particular ethnic group standing up and saying, "I'd like to be elected." I mean, to me, for Vallejo, I think it would divide us.
If we were to move to districts, what would the costs in your mind be? Just the actual fiscal impact. What areas would come into play?
Well, the major area is just going to be the cost of changing the elections, how the elections are run, and how you get the word out to people. Because right now, most people don't pay much attention to the elections. They just know every 4 years it's going to be something. They'll wait for the ballot to come through the mail, and all of a sudden there's going to be every 2 years, half the city of Vallejo will get a ballot and the other half won't. What's going on? Where's my ballot? So I think that the actual cost, I don't think, would change that much with districts compared to the general election we have right now, because I don't see anything that would complicate it other than once they get the mechanism set up for just running the elections for half of the city of Vallejo at any one point in time, that I think that would be the only cost. It would be upfront, no ongoing costs.
In your mind, would you give an estimate of what it would cost to make that changeover?
I don't have an idea. It's not something I've looked into. Being a numbers guy, I'd be interested in it, but my gut tells me there's not going to be much.
Okay, that the impact.
Fiscally, no. Obviously, I think the fiscal cost of protecting my vote and the vote of everybody in this community, that would be significant. That's going to be on the magnitude of millions of dollars. But I think that if you're going to fight for your vote, then it's worth spending the money. And I think it's worth spending the money because I want my vote. I want to be able to vote for the candidate that I want to vote for every election.